There's only three main variables that you need to be concerned about when it comes to planning your training sessions. Now, over the course of a training week, you're going to have multiple sessions in there, and that makes up your training load. Now, yesterday we looked at the peak performance protocol, and that gave you a skeleton of what a weekly theme should look like on each day to remove a lot of the guesswork. But the devil is in the details, so knowing what's actually in those days is going to be the difference between you making progress and you staying exactly where you are, or maybe even picking up an injury or not feeling great on game day. When we look at pro players have this meticulously managed by 20 to 30 performance staff members looking at GPS numbers, heart rate numbers, they look at blood markers, they do daily tests to check fatigue, they have S&C coaches checking all the weights, making sure everything's moving correctly in the right direction. They pull back when they know things are getting too hard or too easy. As a part-time player or an amateur player, that's not going to happen, and it's not very practical. But what we can look at is, from a gym perspective, is the volume, the intensity and the frequency. So that is the three main variables. Frequency is what we've already touched on with the performance protocol, where we suggest that 2 to 3 gym sessions per week in season, 3 to 4 off season, and then you'll have your 2 to 3 squad sessions plus a game. And then you'll have any conditioning top-ups throughout the training week based on if you need to improve your conditioning or you're not playing enough match minutes. But that the conditioning is just a top-up, because if you're training 2 or 3 times a week with your squad, you should be fit enough. If you're playing 90 minutes, you should be fit enough. But the gym side of things is where we have to get things right if we want to improve speed, power and change that physique. So frequency, like I said, we've touched on, but intensity is the amount of weight that you're lifting in the gym. When it comes to on pitch, the intensity is the speed you're running at, or maybe even the rest times. If I told you to run 100% and I gave you 3 or 4 minutes rest in between sprints, that's us looking for a speed stimulus. If I told you to run back and forward 10 times at full speed and then gave you 45 seconds rest, that's more conditioning than it is speed. In the gym, it's no different. If I get you to lift a heavy weight, maybe 80% and above of your 1 rep max, that's more than likely a strength stimulus I'm looking for, but the reps are a little bit lower. If I brought down the weight a little bit, but more reps, we're looking at hypertrophy. Then if I want to get more power or more speed, the weight might come down a little bit, but I'm expecting you to move it faster. Might even be bodyweight jumps or light-weighted jumps or an Olympic lift or medicine ball stuff. All of that stuff is going to be more geared towards speed and power. For you as a player, you've probably got a lot of that peer pressure, social media pressure that you have to be having no days off and going hard all the time. I would actually suggest that doing it that way is going to shoot yourself in the foot, because what we want you to do is train all of these qualities over the course of a week, but do it in a way that provides balance so you get recovery, but you get to improve the one thing that you need to prioritise right now, and everything else gets maintained. So that means that rather than being exhausted and fatigued at the end of each session, if you're trying to improve speed and power, you might find that you aren't exhausted, you're actually feeling okay, because the volume is very different from that if you're trying to pack on lean muscle and you're doing a lot of weight in the gym and it's off season. So it really does depend on your goal, and that's what I mean by the devil is in the detail. So what we want you to do is effectively improve the one thing you want to improve in your gym sessions, and the rest gets maintained. And then when you get up to a good standard, you can then focus on the next level up the pyramid, and that system just continues. Once everything's at a good standard, you can then start picking and choosing where your focus needs to be. So if we look at volume as a last variable, in the gym, this is just your sets, your reps and the weights. So you multiply them all together. So set times rep times weight. So if the intensity, like we've mentioned, is the fitness quality we're training, the volume is just how much of that we're getting. So if I'm doing a speed session and I'm telling someone to do 5 sprints of 30 metres, that's just 150 metres of volume. However, if I say you're going to do 5 sets of 30 metres 4 times a week, we've changed the frequency, but we've also changed the volume, because that's now went from 150 metres of load that week to 600 metres. And what we have to try and avoid is spiking the load too much or dipping it too much, because that's when our body doesn't like it and we don't get to see gradual progress, and we start to detrain as well. So again, the devil is in the detail of what we do. So what I would like you to do is use what I call the built like a baller sessions. This is the easiest way as a framework to do all of your gym sessions. It works every single time. You get to train every single quality, and all you have to do is change the sets and the reps based on what your goal is. Right, and obviously after a warm-up, you'll do your power and speed work. That might be some plyometrics, might be some jumps, might be some weighted jumps, and might be some medicine ball work. You do that first. How much you do is completely dependent of whether or not that is your main goal right now. If your goal was power and speed, then that's higher volume. You want to get more of that stimulus, but it means the rest of the session, the strength, the hypertrophy, the conditioning, all of that stuff, the volume's a little bit lower because you don't want to detract away from improving that power. If you're just trying to maintain it, you might only do 1 to 3 sets of say 3 to 4 reps of it, then you go into strength. Once you do your strength work, that's your main lift. If it's a lower body day, maybe a back squat, a trap bar deadlift. If it's an upper body day, maybe a bench press, an overhead press, a weighted chin up. And then you've got hypertrophy work, which may be an accessory to what you're doing in your strength lift. So if you're doing a trap bar deadlift, you might do something like a Romanian deadlift, or you might do a goblet squat or a reverse lunge to support that. But this is where the weight's a little bit lower, we're going a little bit higher in the rep ranges, but the volume is going to be dictated again of whether or not we are trying to improve at this time. So if it's off season, the volume might be higher because we can recover from the high volume of hypertrophy work. But if it's in season, we might just do a little bit lower, give our muscles that little bit of a stimulus so we retain our muscle mass, and then we move on without getting too fatigued. And then lastly, you finish off with any injury prevention and resiliency work. So effectively there's 4 blocks here: power and speed, strength, hypertrophy, resiliency and conditioning. And that just depends on what your focus is right now. So your task today is have a look at this Built Like a Baller session. Just have a look at how it's been laid out. So you've now got your training week from the Peak Performance Protocol. You've got the Built Like a Baller sessions that fit into those days. Your task is just to tell me what you're doing right now. What does your gym plan currently look like? I don't care if it's something that you've just created yourself by Googling and looking at things, that's fine. If it's something you've purchased, but I'd love to know what your gym plan looks like currently. A normal week for you. When do you train it, and what is in the session itself, because that's what matters the most. How many sets and reps you're doing, what sort of percentage of weight you're doing, and if you're doing power work. And if you're not doing any of this stuff, you're not tracking it, let me know as well, because you're here for a reason, because whatever you're doing is not working, and I'm here to help you. So please comment below so I can give you feedback, and then you can improve what you're doing currently. As soon as you do that, you'll be in a really good position for tomorrow's video.